Good afternoon and welcome to the Lancaster County Democratic Party's public access cable show, The Watchful Citizen. My name is Benny Shobe, and we have on set today Senator Norm Wallman, the representative for Legislative District 30. Senator Wallman, thanks for joining us on the show this week.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time, and I want to talk a little bit about your time as a senator. Most Nebraskans think that the legislature works from January to June one semester, January to May the other. Just a few months the first part of the year, and you do nothing else the rest of the time. Tell me, is that true?
No.
What do you guys do the rest of the time?
Well, we have interim hearings about educational issues, about water issues, about all different things. And plus we have constituents call you at home.
They call you at home?
And they know I've always had it listed. And I think it's important that they can get a hold of me at home or at the office. And I want to hear what their thoughts are as well.
Interesting. So what are you working on this summer? Well, let's do another question differently. We just finished up the first session of the 103rd Legislature. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? 10 being that we did a really great job, 1 being we didn't do that well.
Between 7 and 8, probably.
7 and 8, so that's a pretty good score. So what do you think we did that was really good?
Well, we tackled some issues like on the water thing, the water study and the tax study, and also climate issues. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully we get some education issues out there. You know, that's a contentious issue.
It is.
Global warming, so-called, but we put it as a climate. And definitely the climate, I think, is changing.
Do you feel comfortable talking about that a little bit more? Because it has been in the news recently, this study with the university.
Yes.
Do you think that the legislature will revisit that in the spring? Will they revisit the request for a study?
Well, I talked to Senator Har about this. He's concerned about how it's perceived in the media, I think, somewhat. And we may revisit it with amendment or something, but very little money, you know, was appropriated for it, $44,000 or something.
Yes. It was.
And so I think it's important that we know, you know, that if it is cyclical or not. It maybe is, but then we should also know that.
Yes, that would be a finding. If that is a finding, we need to know that. Yeah. So that was one of the things we looked at. There were a couple of things that didn't get passed, or what would you say that got left undone?
Medicaid expansion, that's a biggie.
That is a biggie. That's another one of those national and local issues that we've been talking a lot about. What do you think was the holdup this time around? Well,
I think the holdup was, you know, we have this anti-federal government thing now, and because of what the federal government can't seem to make up their mind on things.
Understand.
And is it a party issue? Is it a policy issue? Is it philosophical issues? So I think people are tired of that.
Yes.
And so they're scared of the feds.
I can understand that. I heard someone say the scariest 9 words ever said, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help."
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that we think of the federal government often as
and I'm also a farmer, so I know that they have ag bills and stuff hanging out there, but the government's been good to the farmers as a whole.
So let's talk about that farmer thing. You are a farmer, and in a minute we're going to talk about the fact that your district represents both Lancaster and Gage County.
Yes.
But the farmer, I think, of being more of a rural occupation.
Definitely.
And Lincoln, Lancaster County is not so much farmland. Farm is a little bit, but not a lot. Do you consider yourself a rural senator or a urban senator?
And I struggle with this myself, so I figure I consider myself a state senator.
State senator.
And so I represent both, and whether it be the higher end people in the north side of my district or the lower end people in the south.
South side? Yeah.
The salary issues. And so they think a little bit different, but yet we're still a lot ag-based, the state is.
This state is greatly ag-based.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask the urban-rural questions is because I often hear issues framed as eastern Nebraska, Omaha, and Lincoln, and versus the rest of Nebraska. And that's kind of an urban-rural thing.
Yes, it is.
But it really is the whole state. We're all...
Yeah. Trying to pull together as a whole. I can see a little bit of that creeping in, but not too bad yet.
So how about, since you are a state senator, and not an urban or rural senator, there are senators that would classify themselves. How does that work together? How do you build coalitions and work with your other senators?
Well, I have friends in Omaha, and not just state senators. And so I try to, talk with those senators, no matter which party it is. And it's communications. And so I have to know what they feel like, and they have to know what I feel like. And a lot of the issues are the same.
I know part of the idea behind the unicamera was that we could get away with partisanship and work together as senators. So do you have, I assume you have good luck building relationships and coalitions with senators.
I think I do.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you've worked on that we would not know about? Tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm dealing with the fracking issue, to have some legislation in place to protect the landowner and also to protect our environment, our resources, water. And so I want to make sure that we know what's going on. I'm not necessarily want to stop it, but if it endangers our environment, then I think we should really be looking at what are other states doing. So I tried to copy off of Texas's rules.
Yeah.
And so as of right now, I don't know if we still have any. They keep promising we're going to have something, so hopefully we will get something. Otherwise, I think it has to be brought out for debate somehow. Can't get it out of committee. You know how committee hearings work?
I do know how committee
I
hearings
think
work.
everybody does.
I'm not sure. Maybe we'll talk about that a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, I've been to a few committee hearings. And yeah, they're an opportunity for me and other citizens to speak, and sometimes things happen. Sometimes we just talk and then nothing happens.
That's right.
You mentioned fracking. That's an environmental issue. I live in Lincoln. I didn't know there was fracking or I guess it's gas and oil exploration going on in Nebraska. Is there quite
Sure.
a bit?
Out west.
Out west there is some? And I guess relying on Texas where they probably do a lot more of it than we do.
Yes, they do. So they got pretty decent legislation in place. And so I wouldn't think they would holler about Nebraska if we follow Texas's rules, but big corporations don't exactly like any regulations.
That's true.
And they're scared, I guess. But if they do things right, they don't have to be scared.
Yes. Do you feel comfortable talking about the pipeline issue? Your gas and oil fracking, and that's another one of those contentious ones. Do you feel, you're laughing.
Yeah, I testified in front of the grand jury on this. And I took the rancher's side. And it wasn't necessarily about the pipe itself. It's when you disturb that prairie, that culture,
Yeah.
you can have a hard time getting it started back because that pipe is hot.
Yes.
And so it generates weeds. And I've seen some of this happen to a fellow friend of mine. And his concern wasn't about pollution of the aquifer necessarily. It was about how do I get my prairie started.
How it disturbs the ecosystem of that prairie.
Because that's a huge trench like this.
Yeah.
And because it just keeps caving in, so they dig a wide trench.
I understand. I didn't know that. And so it gets hot, and then basically,
It changes the ecosystem.
yes. So any good vegetation doesn't grow there, and basically nuisance things grow.
Yeah, because it's higher pressure.
Did not know that. Oh, the friction through the
Yeah.
pipe pressure. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about other issues. You mentioned water. You mentioned a couple of environmental issues. You're Lancaster. I live in Lancaster County. You're my Lancaster County senator. You're one of 9 senators representing Lancaster County. But a majority of your constituents live in Gage County. How do you balance, are they competing interests? Do people in Gage County want things that are a lot different than people in Lancaster County?
Well, education-wise, I think we're about the same, and some other issues, but property tax issues is probably a bigger issue in Gage and Lancaster even. And so I had a meeting last night with Beatrice businesses, Main Street.
Yes.
And so I attend those events, Chamber of Commerce and Beatrice. So Gage County is definitely the biggest part of my district as far as populace. So I try to balance that out, more time in Gage and Lancaster.
I understand. I think it would be true. I know that Lancaster, we're doing a lot in our Haymarket area, and we seem to be growing. And Beatrice and Gage County, they lost a couple industries recently.
Yes.
The Aaron's plant, I think that's right. The lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the state legislature doing to help out down there?
Well, I've been working with economic development down there too, and it's tough environment now to expand anything or to start something new. Dempster's, I think, is going to try again.
Oh, good.
That's what I heard last night.
Yes, excellent.
And so I've been encouraging these people, and also to have cohesiveness in the city council, chamber of commerce, and in the Main Street. So you got, and the county board. So you have 4 institutions there, government,
Yes.
which I hope would be more cohesive. Lancaster County, I think, does a pretty decent job of that. And that's a job. I mean, everybody has their own little niche.
Yes.
And I got the best idea. So hopefully
everyone feels that way.
Yep.
Yeah. So you do, it's my understanding that, yeah, you do concentrate mostly on Gage County, but you're also in good communication with the city of Lincoln and Lancaster County. How's the relationship with the mayor and the city government?
I'm pretty impressed with your city government here, your city council. And I like the mayor. I think he's done good things for Lincoln.
Does he
It's
keep you in the
progressive.
Does he keep you in the loop on what's going on?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, that's good to know. So again, you have to balance those
Early
two.
morning meetings.
Oh, really? That's early morning might not be so good for me, but but that's good to know. I want to talk about one of the things that's going on over the summer. There's an interim study on taxes. The Tax Modernization Commission is going on. I don't think you're on that committee, but have you been to some of the hearings?
Yes, I have.
I know the governor would like to do some tax reform. Could you tell us what do you think the committee will show up with? What do you think the committee will determine?
Well, I've already had different tax reform measures when I first got in. It was copied after Iowa somewhat on school funding.
Yes.
And paying off bonds and that, you could use income and sales. In other words, kind of, well, I hate to use the word earmarked, but we did it for roads, you know.
Yes.
Senator Fisher's bill. So we did.
That's the way I do my budget. I sign money to different
Farmers do too. You have a certain point here.
This money goes there.
And so we don't really have that for education. We just tinker around with the formula every year. And we never put the money in what the formula calls it for the year before. So we're always adjusting the formula, so school districts do not know what they're going to get. So taxpayers, you know, are they going to levy too high over here to make sure they're safe? And we never get it done in time for school budgets. And it bothers the Education Committee and us as a body.
Yes.
We should just put that much money in there and leave it for a couple years.
You think that's something that will happen in this next term or sometime soon?
I'm very skeptical.
Well, I'm a little confused that my governor he keeps saying he'd like to see the tax system reformed. I assume he's saying he wants tax fairness for everyone. But if we're not fully funding all the programs in place now, is it appropriate to be cutting taxes at this point?
No.
Okay.
If we want to build our infrastructure, build our cities, build our highways, you know, it takes money.
Yes.
And you have to factor in inflation, which we don't seem to do.
No.
My salary isn't factored in, you know. It isn't.
Yeah.
It's static.
Your salary is not much. And I know it was on the ballot last fall to increase the salaries of state senators. Do you think that keeps people from running, like what you're paid to be a senator?
For younger people,
younger.
I think it does.
So I'm thrilled with my representation here in Lancaster County. Does it affect any? Have you heard other senators say they can't afford to run anymore? Have you heard anyone say anything like that?
Yeah, I've heard them say it really struggles.
It's a struggle.
And they can make it work somewhat, but you have to have a friendly employer. And also you have to put a lot of hours in, more than than I do. And so that's sad. But maybe you do want some expertise there, you know, some senior.
I would like to see a little bit more expertise. We're kind of getting around the issue of term limits.
Yeah.
I'd like to see people with more expertise, and I think the living wage would be, a good salary would be better. Do you think that's something that the legislature will revisit, increasing your wages?
No, we got hammered so bad that, you know, I don't think we better try it again. Not during my time.
Well, you're in the middle of a term right now. How many terms have you served as state?
This is my second term.
Second term.
It'll be my 8th year next year, so I'll be termed out.
And so I'm not happy about that. But do you think the term limits will be something that we revisit?
I think maybe that should go one more term.
Maybe
I
three?
think we made a tremendous mistake putting them both on the ballot. And I mentioned that on record. I said, hey, we do both, they're going to both fail. That was my gut feeling, and that's what people in my district said.
Yeah.
Hey, we just put term limits in place. Now you want expansion and then also salary. And you know how that is. People do not like that.
Yes, I see.
And myself, I had apprehension. I did not vote for myself a pay raise. I voted for the extension of the terms.
Oh, really?
Because I thought that was important to have some more leadership and keep somebody, maybe not myself necessarily, but for other people.
I will agree with what you're saying. I noticed that when term limits began a couple terms ago, and the new group of senators that were elected, they are all in the middle of their second term now, and the legislature has become more efficient, I think,
Yep.
and there's a lot more knowledge, and things are moving forward again. There was a little bit of period where there was stagnant, and things didn't go as smoothly as possible.
And I can blame some of the older senators for that, I think, because we was kind of proactive. We went to classes, you know, the clerk, we took his classes, and most of us understood government quite well. We was in some kind of a government role, school districts or city councils or mayors. So most of us understood government quite well. And that's not necessarily happening now.
I understand. I'm a little concerned about that too. I know Nebraska does mandate some civics courses for schools, but I often talk to people who don't understand what you as a state senator does, what the legislature does.
Yeah, it's sad.
Now, you do serve on a couple of committees.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about your committees and what they do.
It's government. I serve on that, and then military affairs.
Okay.
So we deal with rules in government, whether it be voting or things like this.
I noticed the government committee had a hearing last week. This is the first week of November. What were you exploring over the summer?
Well, one of them was about, always about voter things. And then other things is about Senator Mello brought some issues forth that he would like to see visited. I don't know if we'll do anything, but Common Cause usually testifies in some of the ACLU, and they are either, they give us insight or against it. And some of these ideas are probably pretty good, but they're not going to happen till the future, you know?
Right.
So we have some good senators that have futuristic minds. And, they're from Omaha. And so they must have had good civics in university or Creighton or something.
Yeah. You think that's a statewide problem, education and civics?
Yes,
definitely. I meet people every day who struggle to understand what the unicameral means and how you guys actually work on a day-to-day basis. Yep. I would encourage them all to come to the chamber and watch you watch. There's a gallery there; they can watch what's going on. You mentioned earlier in our conversation that you do hear from people. They call you at home. Your number's listed in the book. Yes. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you? If someone they're passionate about something, they want to talk with you about it. How do you recommend they get in contact with you?
I'd recommend they call my office so the staff gets it down, because if I'm busy, I might forget or anything. But that's probably the best way.
Best way. Do you do email or telephone? Do you have a preference on that?
Telephone.
Telephone's better. Okay, I can do that. So tell me a little bit more about. You said you served on the government committee. Is there another committee you serve on?
Business and labor.
Business and labor.
And ag.
And ag. Do you like one of those better than the other? I'm guessing you're going to lean toward ag.
Yeah.
Tell me what the ag committee's up to. What did they do in the spring session? What do you got planned for next year?
Well, I got a bill in ag session that's pretty controversial, even for myself.
Oh my!
And it's about 2,4-D with grapes. We have more vineyards around.
No, okay, 2,4-D.
It's a herbicide.
It's a herbicide.
It's a weed killer.
Okay. Yes.
And it's not a pesticide; it's a herbicide. So, and I struggle with that myself because I got grape growers pretty close around us now, and they chose to buy acreages and put in grapes. And if we kill them as a farmer, just because we grow corn and soybeans, is not right either.
Okay, slow down a little bit. I'm a little confused. So the herbicide that we use on our corn and soybeans will also kill the grapevines.
Yeah, if you use it for weed killers.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a growth stimulant.
So
2,4-D, so it really grows things to death.
Oh, so that's a little
Yeah, it's weird, but it's a tremendous product, and it's been around for years and years and years. It's kind of a spin-off of Agent Orange. It's a little.
I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
It's a little more concentrated, and so we use that too for trees and things, But drift is the problem.
That's what I was going to say. How's it getting there? Is it on the wind or in the water supply? So it's a wind drift. So if I spray my soybeans or spray my corn, and in a grape vineyard's adjacent, there might be a problem.
Might be.
So your bill's going to limit the usage?
Put in regulations between certain dates, and it is not going to be a mandate, but it's going to let all the commercial applicators know, and the cities and counties would also spray roadsides for leafy spurge and noxious weeds. And it's also government agencies use a lot of 2,4-D.
Really? 2,4-D.
Highway departments. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to my civics, history, and science classes. I remember Rachel Carson's Silent Spring when we were talking about DDT. Yeah. This is not like that. This is a different.
No, this is different.
Different than that. That was a much bigger issue.
DDT really affected the egg shells, remember?
Yes, bird shells. I remember the videos of the people with the smokers driving through the neighborhood. They were spraying for mosquitoes.
And they still use DDT in parts of the world.
They do. Yes, they do. Yeah, so other parts of the world they do. So, ag, we're going to look at herbicide usage, business and labor. What did you do on the Business and Labor Committee last
We
session?
didn't do a whole lot this last session, but we're always dealing with unemployment
Yes?
and disability issues, and insurance companies, are always trying to jack the numbers around what you get reimbursed and when you get reimbursed.
Right.
And that's a biggie, and I tried to get a bill in there to increase inflation, like if I get disabled 25 years ago,
Yes.
my disability payment stays the same.
Still locked in at that 30, 25 year ago rate. Yes.
And I discussed with the lobbyist about this, and they don't want to change it, but they want to change it. There's other issues. I said, you got to have both. If we want to change one thing, then we should change that as well.
It sounds like the business and industry wants to change it would be advantageous for us, and you're still fighting for the citizen in Nebraska to make sure that he's taken care of at the same time. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that's important.
It is. It is. You represent the senator. As you said, you're a Nebraska senator. You
Yep.
represent all Nebraskans.
Yep. Not just farmers and ranchers, but laboring people and teachers as well.
So let's talk about this, you being a farmer or rancher. Do you consider yourself a farmer or a rancher?
Farmer.
What do you raise? What did you raise?
Corn and soybeans.
Corn and soybeans? Large acreage or just a...
Just an average farm nowadays, or a small farm.
So how do you balance that and getting calls at home to be my state senator? How do you balance keeping the farm
A lot of people
going?
have my cell number, and I got brothers and a nephew helping, and so otherwise I would have to retire.
So let me ask
But
you,
I still enjoy it.
you still enjoy it? Good. I grew up on a farm. I miss it. I think I romanticize it a little bit more than it's a little harder than I remember.
Yeah, electronics is a lot different now, but it's also more fun in a
It's
way.
good. I'm glad to hear that. So how much of your day is spent being a farmer? How much of your day is spent being a Nebraska senator? Do you ever not spend a day being a Nebraska senator?
No.
So we get up in the morning, cup of coffee.
Yeah, if I go to the coffee shop, usually once or twice a week, we discuss things there. And so about every day it's about politics. And whether you like politics or not, it's out there, especially now.
Yes.
And we're not very popular either, state senators.
Oh, really? No, I know that sounded a little bit sarcastic, but I was, you see the surveys when people say, do you like the federal government? Do you like Congress or Senate? Everybody says, no, I hate them.
Yeah.
Their approval rating is really low, but then
Yeah.
they say, do you like your congressperson?
Yeah.
Everybody always likes their own.
Yeah.
I like all my state senators. I
thank you.
I assumed everyone did. What do you mean you're not popular?
Well, some decisions we make, especially if you have rules and regulations like an ag, farmers and chemical companies and all these, they don't want any more rules or regs. And I'm a farmer myself. I hate them myself. But we should be good neighbors. And that's what I'm about. I try to be fair and transparent, and all this good stuff. And so I think I'm fairly well liked, but
Yeah.
but maybe not. But that doesn't bother me. I got to be true to myself.
So how do you deal with things like, I'm thinking about funding programs, and right now the Tax Modernization Commission is doing research. The governor's announced that he'd like to give property tax relief to Nebraskans, and I'm a little confused on how we don't pay state property taxes, so how does he give relief? But we have to pay for something,
Yes.
and usually the property tax relief that I get is only a few cents or a few dollars a year, not much.
Right.
Do you get many people like me that say, I don't really want my taxes cut, I'd rather you spend it on services? How often do you hear that?
Never.
Never?
Well,
Okay.
I shouldn't say never. Some school teachers tell me they don't mind paying their taxes, but that's about the only group. And so naturally, my wife's a retired teacher, so
Yes.
I definitely have empathy toward teachers.
I understand.
They can make principals or superintendents look bad or good.
Yes.
And administrative costs, I think, have gotten out of hand in our public schools. And I shouldn't be picking on them, but I just think that's the way it is.
Administrative cost
Yeah.
in the public, yes.
When I went to school, the superintendent at least taught one class. And Lancaster County had a county superintendent. We had lots more schools around here, and I went
Yes.
to one-room school too. But the county superintendent, one of them was my friend years later, was Leonard Melcar in Lancaster County. And a wonderful superintendent, and a wonderful teacher, and a wonderful coach. He did lots more than just being a superintendent.
I understand. So
And maybe some of that's our legislative fault, too much
Yeah.
paperwork and stuff, I don't know.
I understand what you're saying. So maybe that's a place to look. You mentioned earlier on in our conversation the school funding formula,
Yeah.
which is complicated, and I've tried to understand it, but I'm not sure. Yeah, we need a couple rocket scientists to do that. But
Well, you throw some numbers in the machine and it comes out.
it comes out. Well, I hope we can look at that. Is there something that you'd like to tell me or tell our audience that I didn't ask you? I asked you a lot of questions and we covered a lot of topics. Is there something you'd like to tell us?
Well, BSDC issues.
Yes,
that
let's
was
talk
big
about
when
that.
I first got in, and
Yes. Thank you.
I think administration, executive branch wanted to close it because of the trouble with the federals on rules and regs that we had in place, and that was our fault, I felt. And so now we at least got it down to smaller cottages like the feds seem to want.
Yes.
And so we have it so it coincides with federal regulations. And it shouldn't have took that long. But I think if I have a fault with the unicameral in Nebraska and the federal government, we have way too many appointed positions.
Okay.
And they're not responsible to anybody, whether it be EPA or OSHA or anybody. You get appointed to that, you know. But the executive branch,
Yes.
the voter then really has no, and we do the same thing in Nebraska.
We do the same thing in Nebraska. I agree.
We're supposed to okay them, but in committee hearings, but we only got about an hour. You can't make phone calls in an hour. On a superintendent search, we usually waited about 2 weeks. And I'd call bankers, lawyers, and stuff like this.
You could really vet them well.
Yeah. I didn't use their phone numbers. I used ones that I thought I should be calling.
You did a little bit more. You went above and beyond on the research, is what
And
you're
I
saying.
never have any time on that.
Yeah.
So you just basically rubber stamp with the executive branch, with the governor.
Well,
in
that's
other words,
a
puts
little
out.
bit disheartening to hear that. I know that Beatrice was in bad shape a few years ago.
Yeah.
The state government and has been.
And I had good help with the Omaha senators and Lincoln.
You hired some good people and things are turning around.
Yep.
And there were some questionable employees. I think that they've all been
Yep.
removed now, haven't they? Well, listen, we've covered a lot of territory, and I've got lots more questions to ask you,
Sure.
but we're kind of out of time for today. Would it be possible? Can you come back another time and talk some more with us?
Sure.
That would be great. I love that. You've been watching the Watchful Citizen, a Lancaster County Democratic Party public access program. Our show airs on Tuesday nights at 10 p.m., Wednesdays at 6 p.m., and Saturdays at 12:30 on cable access channels. Thank you, Time Warner Cable, for carrying our show. You can also find us on our YouTube channel at Lancaster County Dems. My name is Benny Shope, and I'm your host, and I hope you'll tune in again next time for another episode of The Watchful Citizen. Thank you.